Okay. Three. Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. I am your host, Sir Charlot, and today we're going to be talking about a topic that's kind of touchy, especially in today's society, but I feel like it's something that really needs to be spoken on, not in a positive aspect of agreeing everything associated with it, possibly. But providing some critical points, and especially from a biblical perspective. But I'm gonna get into that in a minute. But first, what I'd like to describe is the reason why it's a part of the Mttsg saga. It's mainly because this is actually a major grade assignment for my teacher to grade. I've been extremely late on it because I've been working on it for so long. But nonetheless, I am here and I am ready to present. So also my teacher is going to be among one of my viewers this time. So hi ma'am, how are you doing? Hope you're having a nice day. And I was tagged in the comments below the basically the time frame in which I actually started getting into what I'm talking about, so you don't have to watch this whole intro. You may not even hear what I'm saying now, but yeah, today I wanted to talk about women's rights and the evolution of feminism since it first started up until now. And first thing I'd like to say in an introduction to inform y'all on what the history of women's rights or feminism in particular. Feminism has been known to be divided into three divisions, or waves as people call them. The first wave refers to the movement of the 19th through early 20th centuries, which dealt with mainly the suffrage, working conditions, and educational rights for women and girls. The second wave, 1960s to 1980s, dealt with the inequality of laws, as well as cultural inequalities and roles of women in society. The third wave of feminism, 1990s to 2000s, is seen as both a continuation of the second wave and a response to the perceived failures. I'm going to get into that in a minute, because there are some so-called perceived failures that lead to some conflict, especially in the third wave today. Alright, so basically to give some more in detailed background, the first official meeting of women's rights activists and feminism happened in Seneca Falls, New York in 1848. And it established the first beginnings of feminism in America and later on Europe and other countries. And was the stepping stone in granting American women so many freedoms that they had been fighting for, such as the right to vote, and as well as the right to be able to publicly post writings. Like, there was actually a poet in particular during this time period who was majorly unrecognized until maybe some decades after she passed away, because she was a woman. Nobody wanted to really read a woman's poetry, so she decided not even to publish her work because of that, which is quite sad. So the first wave, I'm 100% agreeing with. Educational rights to vote, all those things, I'm 100%. Second wave, it basically pretty much the same thing, but with more elaboration. President John F. Kennedy signed the Equal Pay Act of 1963 into law. The new legislation stipulated that women could no longer be paid less than men for doing comparable work at the same job. This act was the result of a group of women in the White House led by a labor activist, Esther Peterson. So right off the bat, second wave of feminism, we can already tell that this was good. Pretty much anything involving John F. Kennedy is a good cause, because he was a good president, my favorite president since ever. But yeah, you can see here, he was signing an act, Equal Pay Act, that was basically giving women the ability to not be, under the court of law, not be discriminated against lawfully for being a woman. So pretty much everything else that people did within the office are outside of the law, and basically opinionated ideas and statements, which is the oppression of women in the workplace. which is quite sad, but good to know it wasn't a part of the law anymore. Second portion that I wanted to talk about in the second wave is Betty Friedan. She helped ignite the second wave of feminism with her book, The Feminine Mystique. This is a woman who found it concerning that women were pressured into staying at home and not being productive out in the world. Basically, the thought process and the American mindset was, okay, the woman's only purpose is to marry a man and then, serve under the house. Just making a note right quick, not saying in any way that being a stay-at-home mom is in any way, wrong, or you should feel bad if you're doing this. No, not by any means. I feel like it's a wonderful thing that certain moms choose to stay at home and, stay dedicated to raising their kids. What I'm saying is that either option is fine. We shouldn't assume that the purpose for every single woman, human being, is that, for this. But yeah, I'm going to say that in a little bit. So yeah, just keep watching. When we clearly know that that's not the purpose, that's not just the sole purpose of women in general, because that's not the sole purpose of human beings. Some people choose to live alone. But yeah, just to give my opinion on the first and second portion, I 100% agree that women should have the freedom to pursue goals and things like that. But one problem that I would say is maybe a flaw within the second wave is the fact that they saw it as, okay, the husband goes out in all cases, not in some, but in all cases, the husband is able to go out into the workforce and do what he wants to do and have more freedoms and stuff like that, while the wife has to stay home and take care of the children. This was the case in every single household. You have households where people actually see it for what it is. Once you get married and produce children, your life at that point is to serve and advance those children up until they're ready to leave the house. You become a dependent, and you become independent, but a dependent by the children. The children depend on you. So it wasn't just a thing of, the man is living in freedom and then the woman is suffering at home. No, it wasn't. It should have been in all cases, but it wasn't, of course, an equal thing that both people are providing, and this is something that they have to do, not just something that they want to do. But either way, freedom's required. Second thing that I wanted to talk about was basically some scriptures within the Word of God, because again, this is a Christian perspective, and more importantly, God's perspective on this. Just to give it some examples, Proverbs chapter 31, verse 15 through 17. This is basically to give you a quick fill-in on who's talking during this period of time and why they're saying what they're saying. It's basically the mother of a king who's going to be elected king of Israel sometime BC, I believe. Of course, sometime BC. But she's basically telling him what type of woman he should be searching for. What are the qualities of a good woman? These are some examples of what the ancient Israelites considered, particularly the mom of this particular king, which was a prophet. She spoke from the Lord. She is what they considered a good woman, which is, to give an example, she is like the merchant ships bringing food from afar. That's actually verse 14. Verse 15 says she gets up while it is still dark. She provides food for her family and portions for her servant girls. So this is a person that's also serving the household. They're not just at home, they're out and about searching for new things. Verse 16, she considers a field and buys it. Out of her earnings, she plants a vineyard. This also shows that back in ancient Israel, women had the allowed permissions to buy, sell, and trade land. And particularly being that this is a prophet, this is something that God spoke through the prophet. So this is something that God approves of in particular. I know a lot of y'all may not believe, but still, that's what that means. So now we're going to describe wave 3 of feminism. In the 1990s, women's rights activists longed for a movement that continued the work of their predecessors while addressing their current struggles. In addition, these women wanted to create a mainstream movement that was inclusive of various challenges as women from different races, classes, and gender identities were facing. So basically, these were people who may have, different races, classes, and gender identities. Some people, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, classes. You may have rich people, middle class, poor class, whatever the case, including all of these people. And I have to let you know, during this segment, it is, in wave 3, it is quite a shift from the predecessors. Even though it doesn't seem like it, it is quite a shift from the predecessors, meaning the people who came before wave 3. This is a different generation of people, keep in mind. Social media is something that's more valuable and useful during this time period and things like that. And like as stated, they were striving for women's rights to be more mainstream and more on the media and more talked about on TV, which in my opinion is not always a good thing, especially since during this time period, wave 2 was highly successful in their drive for women's rights, because the just all around women in the workplace, wherever else, at home, were significantly treated better because they were viewed now, okay, these people are human beings, they're not just less than the man, But in wave 3, the idea of different propaganda, different things being talked about on social media and stuff like that, especially with the development of phones and different technologies all the way up until today, the main goal was a women empowerment movement. This is where pseudo-feminism comes in. This is basically false feminism that I'm speaking about. Some of the goals within the 90s were good, but due to this new era of social media and mainstream media, anything involving them is bound to be corrupt. But back to the main point, moving up until the 2000s, you had more people talking about how women deserve a higher respect than a man, which is a problem. That's not equality. You had people talking about other things like abortion rights, even though in my opinion, as a Christian, that is a human being inside of there. People who may not have the ability to raise a child, even if they can put them into the adoption agency. I know it's a tough topic, but you'd rather that child be alive than to kill it off and have that blood on your hands. So, but again, I know it's a touchy topic, but still, I gotta speak the truth on that. Abortion rights, women thinking that they deserve to be viewed as better than men, this freedom of inappropriate tendencies to do things outside of a marriage, like, okay, I don't want to do this in a marriage, I want to be able to do this on a social media platform where literal possible young adults, including myself, are glancing past that. These things were the things that were being discussed during this time period, and having more of a freedom to do that on social media and the internet and out in the world, period. You have songs like, the Ice Spice song that dropped, talking about basically calling whoever was talking to her quote, a munch, and making fun of them for, I guess talking to her, whatever the case. You have people like her. You have people on inappropriate apps like OnlyFans, other things, right? That are literally draining the population. But no, it's all about nowadays. It's all about, okay, I do what I want to do, regardless of how it harms another person, regardless of how it harms people, whoever I may consider to be a person or not, regardless of how it harms someone I deem worthy of respect or not. This is the problem with our society today. And this is the problem with the so-called feminism of today. And not all feminism is bad. Not all, feminists per se are bad. There are some that are actually striving for the rights and truth of what feminism started out to be. It's almost as if they time traveled from back then into this present time, because they have pretty much the biblical morals and everything about the origins of feminism and women's rights and the movement. But specifically with this pseudo-feminism in today's society, that's what I'm speaking on as far as today. That's what I have a problem with. I find it that as the more we drift away, and of course people may not believe this, the more we drift away from biblical ideas, true biblical ideas on what we should be doing as human beings, the more we drift into nonsense. To give some scriptural examples, I know these are some words that we wouldn't talk about in school, so another reason why I'm glad I'm sharing it on here. 1 Corinthians chapter 6 verse 18. Flee from sexual immorality. Every other sin a person commits is outside the body, but the sexually immoral person sins against his own body. This is not only speaking to women, but in the example of one argument of so-called feminism in today's society, people like to say things like, a pseudo-feminist would say something like, I want freedoms to do things in said manner without consequence, meaning that whether that may be, being with multiple people or whatever the case, or when pregnancy happens, they want to not deal with the responsibility and just abort the child, which is evil. You want to go around and indulge in the desires of your heart and mind, but once the consequence comes, which shouldn't be seen as a consequence because children are a blessing, but with these people, they see a baby as a consequence. So once that result comes, now it's like, okay, let's get rid of it, but that's a whole deep topic for another day. But my main point is using that example. This pseudo-feminism that is rising today, and it started in the 90s and is very prominent in today's society, is a strive against biblical values. They may not say that up front, but deep down in the heart of the matter, that is what it is. That's why you have people like one of my favorite speakers, Jordan Peterson, speaking up against these things. These people are, albeit not all of them are believers, especially like people like Andrew Tate, Sneeko, stuff like that. They don't speak on a lot of points. They speak on a lot of points that make sense, but other points that they say really also go against biblical values, especially. So main person that I would recommend listening to is Jordan Peterson, because he stays true to the values. But that's my view on it. I agree with mostly 100% with the first two waves of feminism, but the third one not so much, because there's a whole bunch of bandwagon feminists that go on Facebook, go on TikTok, go on Instagram, and post all this other stuff, and are just downright not right. Some of them even have a hatred towards the male chromosome itself. They feel like, okay, the XY chromosome is like, it's a stain on humanity, men shouldn't exist and stuff like that. That to me is hurtful and disgusting, and anybody who says that should be banned from the internet. But unfortunately, the internet doesn't side with people who think logically. They side with people who think illogically and go with their stuff, again, against biblical values. But that's my view on feminism since 1868, I believe it was, up until 2022. So hopefully I don't get banned from class for this, just saying. But yeah, I know you not like that, man, so I'm just joking. But I hope y'all have a wonderful and blessed day. Hopefully I have this edited and uploaded. It's 6:21. Sabbath starts at 6:33, so I may not have this uploaded today. I may not. I have like literally 10 minutes on the clock, but y'all have a wonderful and blessed day in Jesus' name. And Sir Charlo saying again, peace out.